Have you ever lain awake at night replaying a conversation you had 5 years ago, wondering if you said too much or too little? Have you ever wanted to act, speak up, take that chance, but your mind whispered, "What if it all goes wrong?" This is not just anxiety, this is the silent curse that traps millions every day. Overthinking, a battle fought in silence, a mind that becomes your jailer. You pace through possibilities, looped in imaginary arguments, endlessly scanning for the perfect answer that never arrives. You delay decisions, question intentions, analyze smiles, read into silences, and in the process, you exhaust your own soul. But why does our brain, this beautiful machine, turn against us? Why do we suffer analysis paralysis while others move on freely? In this video, we'll dive deep into psychology, philosophy, real human experience. We'll explore where overthinking begins, why it persists, and most importantly, how we can break free. If you've ever felt trapped in your thoughts, you're not alone, and this is for you, because sometimes your greatest prison of Dubin is the one you build inside your own mind. The inner storm. So, what exactly is overthinking? It's not just thinking too much. It's a mental spiral, a loop where the mind obsesses, revisits, and rewinds again and again. And ironically, the more we think, the less we act. Psychologists call it rumination, a cognitive process where the brain gets stuck on negative thoughts, regrets, or fears. But here's the catch. The brain thinks it's solving a problem, when in reality it's just creating more. Imagine your mind as a search engine. You ask it, "Why did they ignore my text?" And suddenly, your brain opens every possible tab. "They're mad at me. I said something wrong. They found someone better. What if I'm just not good enough?" And before you know it, you're drowning in a sea of assumptions, none of which are confirmed, but all of which feel real. This is the inner storm. It forms when the brain fears making a mistake. You feel emotionally unsafe, or your identity becomes tied to perfection. Studies show overthinkers often struggle with low self-esteem, fear of judgment, and even childhood trauma. When we grow up being judged harshly, we learn to prejudge ourselves before the world can. Overthinking is self-defense, but like any armor worn too long, it begins to suffocate. Instead of protecting you from pain, it prevents you from living. Think about it. How many dreams have you delayed? How many conversations have you rehearsed but never said? How many moments of peace have you lost to thoughts that never even came true? Overthinking doesn't prepare you for life, it just pulls you away from it. And the saddest part, most of us don't even realize we're doing it. It becomes normal, like background noise. We call it being cautious, thoughtful, logical. But in truth, it's fear wearing a thinking cap. And unless we pause, step back, and understand it, it will control us from the shadows. But there's hope. Once you recognize the patterns, you can break them. And once you see the storm, you can learn to walk through it. Trapped in the cage of what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I'm not good enough? What if everything goes wrong? It always starts small. One thought, a flicker of doubt. But like a spark in dry grass, it spreads fast. And before you know it, you're trapped in a world made entirely of what-ifs. These are not just questions, they are mental cages constructed from fear, uncertainty, and imagined pain. And the mind? It becomes the jailer and the prisoner at the same time. You see, the brain is wired to predict. It wants to keep you safe. So it creates scenarios, simulations, outcomes, trying to protect you from disappointment, embarrassment, danger. But here's the problem. The brain doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't differentiate between a real threat and a possible one. So even when there's no danger in sight, your heart races, your stomach turns, your body tenses, all because of a thought. Not an experience, not an event, just a possibility. This is what chronic overthinkers go through. They live not in the now, but in the not yet. They suffer before anything ever happens. They rehearse tragedies in their minds as if doing so will somehow soften the blow. But life doesn't work that way. You can't pre-feel pain and expect it to hurt less when it finally comes. If anything, you just double your suffering. You suffer in imagination first and then again in reality, if it even happens at all. Here's the cruel irony. Most of those what-ifs never become real, but they steal real joy. They drain real energy. They delay real dreams. They make you cautious in love, silent in conversation, passive in opportunity. You freeze, not because you don't care, numb, but because you care too much. You care so much that the fear of loss becomes stronger than the desire to try, and so you wait and wait and wait until it's too late. This is how overthinking becomes a cage, a beautiful mind imprisoned by its own brilliance, able to imagine so much but paralyzed to act on any of it. But listen closely. Not every what-if needs an answer. Not every thought deserves a spotlight. Not every possibility deserves your peace. At some point, you must stop playing the movie and start living the moment, because life won't wait, and neither should you. When you find yourself spiraling, ask, what if it goes right? What if I learn something? What if this fear is just a story? It's not about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about reminding yourself that you are more than fear. That possibility includes both failure and growth. That you don't have to predict life perfectly, you just have to show up for it. The feedback loop, how overthinking feeds itself. It starts with a single thought, one worry, one doubt, one what if, and before you know it, you've slipped into the spiral, not thinking about your life, but thinking about your thinking. You replay the same conversation. You dissect every word, every pause, every facial expression. You analyze your decision, second-guess it, then overanalyze your second guess. You search for clarity, but find only fog. Because overthinking doesn't solve the problem, it becomes the problem. Welcome to the feedback loop, the psychological trap where the more you think, the more anxious you feel, and the more anxious you feel, the more you think. Round and round it goes. You look for certainty, but your mind returns only possibilities, each one more overwhelming than the last. Your brain craves closure, a final answer, a clean conclusion. But overthinking never provides that. It keeps the question alive, as if just a little more thought might unlock relief. And so the cycle continues. Here's the paradox. The more time you spend in your head, the less connected you become to the present moment. You're not living. You're watching life like a critic in the back row of your own story, pausing every scene, pointing out every flaw, demanding a rewrite before the scene has even ended. And because you're constantly reviewing your experience, you're not truly having it, which leads to more doubt, more insecurity, more questions. So what do? You think harder. The loop feeds itself with your good intentions. You just want to understand. You want to get it right. You want to avoid pain. But understanding doesn't always come from thinking. Sometimes it comes from living. You don't need to think your way through every feeling. You don't need to solve every discomfort. You don't need to break down every moment like a puzzle. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to let the moment be unfinished, to let the emotion pass without dissecting it, to let go before the answer arrives. Because the loop only breaks when you stop trying to think your way out of it. Think of your mind like a microphone pointed at a speaker. When you overthink, you turn up the volume on your own thoughts until all you hear is feedback, distorted, loud, endless. But when you pause and when you step back from the noise, you hear something else, silence. And in that silence, there's space for new thoughts, new choices, a breath. The feedback loop thrives in tension but dissolves in presence. When you stop clinging to every thought as if it holds life or death, you begin to see them for what they are. Just thoughts, not truth, not prophecy, not commands. Just mental weather passing through the sky of your awareness. So how do you break the loop? Not by force, not by thinking your way out, but by choosing to live again, to return to your body, to your breath, to the world in front of you, to act even when you don't have all the answers, to move forward even when your thoughts beg you to stay. The feedback loop is a trap built by fear but maintained by the illusion that thought is the answer to everything. It isn't. Sometimes the answer is not a better thought. Sometimes the answer is to stop thinking and start being. Emotional exhaustion, the hidden cost of thinking. Too much overthinking is rarely loud. It doesn't scream, it sinks. It doesn't strike like lightning. It drips, slowly, endlessly, until one day you look up and feel empty. Not broken, not even sad, just tired. This is the hidden cost of thinking too much. Not the obvious anxiety, not the racing thoughts, but the quiet fatigue that steals your joy, bit by bit, thought by thought. You become emotionally worn out from carrying 1,000 invisible questions, 1,000 imagined arguments, 1,000 decisions that never get made. You spend your mornings rehashing yesterday. You spend your nights rehearsing tomorrow. And in between, you miss today. Not because you want to, but because your mind won't let you rest. It whispers constantly, what if you didn't say that right? What if you make the wrong move? What if something goes wrong? Again. And so you stay locked in your head while your heart quietly burns out. Emotional exhaustion doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence, like staring at your phone but not replying, like lying in bed not because you're sleepy but because you can't imagine doing another thing. It's losing the energy to care because caring feels like too much. And here's the cruel irony, the more tired you become, the harder it is to stop thinking, because your brain, sensing danger, tries harder to solve the exhaustion, not realizing it caused it. It's like a car stuck in the mud, spinning its wheels deeper into the earth, convinced that more effort will set it free. But all it's doing is sinking. You begin to confuse restlessness with productivity. You think that if you just think a little more, you'll reach peace. But peace doesn't live in effort. It lives in surrender. Let's be honest. Overthinking doesn't just drain your mind. It drains your soul. You stop laughing. You stop dreaming. You stop feeling connected to people, to life, to yourself. Because your emotional energy is being spent on battles that only exist in your imagination. You become a ghost in your own life, haunting every moment but never fully present in any of them. Sometimes people say, I don't feel like myself anymore. And often the reason is simple but painful. You've been thinking yourself to death instead of living yourself to life. So what's the answer? It's not more strength. It's not more logic. It's not some secret trick to stop the thoughts. The answer is compassion. To give yourself permission to not have it all figured out. To rest, not because you've earned it, but because you need it. To cry, not because you're weak, but because your mind has been running a marathon with no finish line. Emotional exhaustion heals not through achievement, but through allowing. Allowing yourself to be unsure, allowing yourself to be human, allowing yourself to pause. You don't need to be perfect to rest. You just need to be tired enough to admit you're human. In the end, the mind might always ask questions, but the heart only asks for one thing, relief. And you owe yourself that, not tomorrow, not after the next thought. Now, social comparison and the thought spiral. You didn't mean to compare, you were just scrolling. A friend got a promotion, someone else got married, a classmate now travels the world, and there you are, alone in your room wearing the same clothes from yesterday, wondering how life left you behind. Social comparison doesn't ask for permission. It creeps in through glowing screens and perfectly curated lives. You didn't ask to feel less, but suddenly you do. Their smiles look more genuine, their lives more adventurous, their paths more clear. And you're just stuck, overthinking, comparing, drowning. It starts innocently. I wish I had what they had. But it doesn't stop there. Your mind grabs that spark and turns it into a wildfire. Why don't I have that? What am I doing wrong? Why am I so behind? And just like that, you're deep in the thought spiral. Comparison fuels overthinking like gasoline to fire, because now every decision feels heavier. You wonder if you chose the wrong path, if you wasted time, if you should have said yes to that job, that person, that version of your life that looks better in someone else's hands. But here's the cruel joke. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You see their joy, but not their breakdowns. You see their trophies, but not their battles. You see the result, not the reality. And yet your brain acts like it knows the full story and punishes you for not keeping up. The spiral deepens. You start measuring your worth by the distance between where you are and where someone else appears to be. And every gap becomes a wound. You think more. You feel less. You sink further. And slowly, without even realizing it, you stop living for yourself. You start performing. Every post becomes a question. Do I look successful enough? Will they think I'm happy? Is this proof that I'm not falling behind? And the tragedy is, none of it satisfies, because comparison is a moving target. The moment you catch up to one person, there's another who's 2 steps ahead, and the spiral begins again. Overthinking loves comparison because it gives the illusion of progress. You feel like you're solving something, but you're really just hurting yourself. You analyze their life like a puzzle while neglecting your own. You spend your energy trying to be someone instead of becoming yourself. So how do you break the cycle? It starts with this truth. Your path is not supposed to look like theirs. Your timeline is not late. Your pace is not wrong. Your worth was never meant to be measured by the speed of your progress or the applause of strangers. You were never meant to fit into someone else's life. You were meant to grow into your own. And that growth, it's quiet. It's slow. It's invisible at first, but it's yours. So the next time you catch yourself in the spiral, pause and ask, what am I really afraid of? Is it that you're not enough? That you'll be forgotten? That you're running out of time? You're not. You are enough, even when you feel lost. You are seen, even when no one is watching. And time isn't running out. It's unfolding moment by moment with you in it. Comparison steals joy. Overthinking steals peace, but neither can take your story if you choose to write it instead of rewrite someone else's. You are not behind. You are on your way. Trust the path, even when it looks nothing like theirs. How overthinking affects relationships. You want to connect, you want to love and be loved, but your mind won't stop rehearsing every word, rewinding every silence, replaying every look like it's evidence in a trial. Overthinking in relationships is quiet sabotage. It doesn't yell. It whispers, did I say the wrong thing? Why didn't they text back yet? What if they're pulling away? You begin to read between lines that don't exist. You assign meaning to delays, build stories from assumptions, and before you even speak to the person, you've already had 100 conversations in your head. None of them real. Overthinking becomes a third person in the relationship, a ghost at the table, a shadow in every room. It makes you interpret silence as rejection, mood shifts as personal attacks, and disagreements as signs of collapse. The tragedy is you're not trying to create drama, you're trying to protect yourself. You want to know, you want certainty, you want safety, but relationships aren't equations, they are feelings. They are fluid, they are fragile and beautiful and full of uncertainty and overthinking. It demands answers before feelings even have time to unfold. You start asking questions not to understand the other person but to calm the war inside your head. Do they still like me? Are they annoyed? Did I mess this up? You seek reassurance again and again until it becomes a need, not a conversation. The more you overthink, the more you lose presence. You stop listening because you're busy interpreting. You stop enjoying the moment because you're trying to predict its ending. And without realizing it, you begin to treat the person as a reflection of your own fears, not as who they truly are. And if they pull back, you wonder, was I too much, too sensitive, too intense? But maybe it wasn't that you were too much. Maybe it was that your mind was too full, full of doubts, full of noise, full of fear pretending to be logic. Overthinking creates walls disguised as caution. You don't open up because you're analyzing their tone. You don't speak your truth because you're imagining rejection. You don't ask what's wrong because you're scripting every worst-case scenario. You guard yourself so tightly that love can't breathe. And the saddest part, sometimes it's not even about the other person, it's about the version of yourself you're still struggling to love. Overthinking is often self-doubt wearing the mask of analysis. You believe you're unlovable, so you scan for signs to confirm it. You believe people leave, so you push them away on the first. You believe you're hard to love, so you make it hard to try. But here's the truth. People aren't perfect, and neither are you. They'll mess up. You'll misread. There will be silence, tension, questions, fear. But that's not a reason to run. That's a reason to slow down, to feel instead of fix, to ask instead of assume, to trust instead of track every signal. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do in love is to stay present, to not let your mind race ahead, to not prepare your heart for pain that hasn't even arrived. So the next time you feel your thoughts spiraling, pause, breathe, return. Look at the person in front of you, not the story in your head. Ask yourself, am I listening or am I defending? Am I speaking or am I rehearsing? Am I loving or overanalyzing? Love is not something to figure out, it's something to feel, to live, to learn. And sometimes you have to quiet the mind so the heart can speak. Overthinking may make you feel safe, but it often leaves you lonely, even in the arms of someone who cares. Choose presence, choose patience, choose real over perfect. The body keeps the score. Physical effects of overthinking. You think it's just in your head, but your body knows the truth. Every thought, every worry, every mental spiral leaves footprints, not just in your mind, but in your chest, your stomach, your breath. The body doesn't just listen, it remembers. When you overthink, your nervous system stays on high alert, not for minutes, not for hours, but sometimes for years. The brain sends signals. Danger is near. Prepare for the worst. Run, hide, solve, survive. But the threat? It's imaginary, it's a possibility, not a reality, and still your body acts like it's real. You can't sleep because your thoughts keep racing long after your body tries to rest. You feel exhausted, not because you did too much, but because your brain ran a marathon of what-ifs. You have headaches, tight shoulders, a stiff jaw, that knot in your gut that never goes away. This is what chronic overthinking does. It turns your fight or flight switch into a stuck gear. Your adrenal system stays activated. Cortisol, the stress hormone, keeps flooding. And the body, without any real enemy to face, starts attacking itself. Not violently, but quietly, in the form of tension, digestive issues, weakened immunity, and burnout that even rest can't fix. Your body begins to mirror your thoughts. If your thoughts say, "I'm not safe," your breath becomes shallow. Your heart beats faster. Your muscles tighten. If your mind says, "I need to figure this out now," your brain stops processing emotions and goes into problem-solving overdrive, even when there's no solution in sight. What's more tragic? You begin to normalize this. You think, this is just how life is. Maybe I'm just anxious. Maybe I just have low energy. But no, you're just carrying too much for too long. And the body is waving a red flag because the mind won't slow down. Overthinking steals your sleep, your peace, your appetite, your ability to be still in your own skin. You scroll endlessly not for entertainment, but to escape your thoughts. You check your phone not for joy, but for reassurance. You eat not from hunger, but from distraction. The irony is you're trying to find control with your thoughts, but in the process you lose control of your physical self. Listen, The body is not your enemy, it's your ally, it's your mirror. It tells the story your conscious mind refuses to hear. Ever noticed how you get sick more often when you're mentally overwhelmed? You feel drained after hours of rumination even without physical activity? Your posture collapses when you feel mentally defeated? These are not coincidences, these are symptoms. So what's the solution? You don't think your way out, you feel your way back in. You breathe, you stretch, you move. You interrupt the mental storm by grounding yourself in the now, because presence isn't just a spiritual concept, it's a physical practice. Try this. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes and breathe. No problem to solve, no decision to make, just awareness. You are not just a brain walking around, you are a living system, and your body is begging for relief. When the mind becomes your cage, the body becomes your prisoner. But it can also be your key, because the path out of overthinking often begins not in your thoughts, but in your body. It starts with small rituals. Drinking water slowly, walking without your phone, breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 and exhaling for 6. Journaling what your body feels, not just what your mind thinks. These aren't just habits, they're revolutions. So the next time you find yourself trapped in spirals, don't just ask, what am I thinking? Ask, what is my body holding right now? What do I need to feel safe? Where can I release instead of analyze? Because when the body heals, the mind starts to soften. And when you come back to the present, the storm begins to settle. Breaking the cycle, from rumination to reflection. You've seen the cage. You've felt the weight of your own thoughts, circling, spiraling, a never-ending echo chamber in your mind. But now, we arrive at the turning point. This chapter is not about the storm. It's about learning to walk out of it. Because yes, overthinking is a curse, but it's not a life sentence. You are not doomed to be a prisoner of your own brilliant, overactive mind. Let's be clear. Rumination is not the same as reflection. One drowns you, the other frees you. Rumination is replaying pain. Reflection is learning from it. Rumination asks, what if I had done it differently? Reflection asks, what did I learn and how do I move forward? It all begins with one decision, to pause. Not to analyze the pause, not to optimize it, but to be in it. Because between stimulus and response is a space. And in that space is your power to choose. Naming the spiral. The moment you realize you're overthinking, call it out. Label it. I'm ruminating. I'm spinning again. This is the story machine at work. Giving it a name gives you distance. And with distance comes clarity. Shift the question. Overthinking often asks the wrong questions. What if it all goes wrong? Why did I say that? What will they think? Instead, ask empowering ones. What can I learn from this? Is this thought helping me or hurting me? What do I know for sure right now? Your brain wants to work. Give it better instructions, right to release. Don't just think your thoughts. Empty them. Use pen and paper, get them out of your head and onto a page. Set a timer, 5 minutes. Write without censoring. What you'll find is this. Most thoughts lose their power once exposed to daylight. Move your body, thinking happens in the mind. But change often begins in the body. Take a walk, do yoga, clean a drawer, stretch. Let your body interrupt the mental monologue. It's not avoidance, it's resetting the channel. Replace what if with what is. Overthinking thrives on imagined futures and past regrets. But peace lives in what is happening right now. Ask yourself, what is true in this moment? Am I safe right now? Is there anything I need to act on or c'est de l'art, or is this just noise? The present moment rarely lies, the mind often does. Practice imperfect action. The antidote to overthinking isn't more thinking, it's doing. Make the call. Send the message. Take the first step, even if it's small. Overthinking says, not yet. Clarity comes when you whisper back, now. You don't need full certainty, just momentum. Train the brain for reflection. Reflection is a skill. It can be learned, and with practice, it becomes your superpower. Try this simple reflection ritual at the end of your day. What's one thing I did well? What's one thing I learned? What's one thing I'll do differently tomorrow? This isn't about self-criticism, it's about self-leadership. You see, When we reflect, we integrate, we grow, we evolve. We stop being victims of our thoughts and start becoming the authors of them. Overthinking will visit you again. That's part of being human. But now, when it knocks, you'll recognize its voice. And instead of letting it set up camp, you'll simply say, "Not today. I'm building something else now." The cycle breaks not in one dramatic moment, but in 100 tiny choices. Each time you pause, each time you breathe, each time you act instead of analyze, that's a victory. And with enough victories, the cage begins to open. Your mind can still be powerful. But now, it doesn't have to be your prison. It can become your garden, where thoughts are not weeds but seeds, where your inner world becomes a place of peace, not punishment, where the storm calms because you learned how to hold the sky.